What would you do to change that budget? What would you cut that's different from what the mayor would cut?
It is a very large budget deficit that needs to be bridged by the end of June, because that'll be just before the new fiscal year begins on July 1st. The mayor and the city council will have to negotiate, probably fight a little bit, to come up with the solution that is best for New Yorkers. As comptroller, I don't have a say in the negotiations. The greatest amount of value that I have, that I add to the process, is by identifying and rooting out waste in city agencies. We've got an agency that has paid out hundreds of millions of dollars without proper contracts in place, so that there's no way to tell if the city actually received the services that it paid for. We've got another instance of an agency, a city agency, holding on to $125 million of money that it should have given back to the city's treasury, so that we can preserve as much of the vital services as we possibly can.
And is that money that the mayor was effectively hiding from the public, as it were, from the city council, from your office?
David, you are far too insightful. I think that
I've been accused of worse, but
the agency in question is the Economic Development Corporation. Obviously, the mayor has a huge amount of sway over that. It's $125 million. It's no small chunk of change. I don't know exactly who called the shot, but the fact of the matter is that this is money that the EDC needs to return to the general treasury, so that the proper budgeting priorities can be set collectively by the mayor and the city council.
But let me get back to the cuts. No, you're not the mayor, although if you ask most people in this town, they say that you're definitely going to run for mayor when this term is up, when this mayor's term is up.
So let me answer your question.
All right, yeah.
What I have said is that to get rid of 6,400 teachers, that's the biggest way that the mayor has proposed balancing the budget. That's a humongous hit to our public schools. I've got a fourth grader in public school right now. The chancellor has said himself that this will mean increases in class sizes of over 10%. I mean, that is giving short shrift to our kids in schools. Is that the only way that we can balance the budget? I submit no. I think that I was very happy to see, as the mayor announced this budget a couple of weeks ago, that several council members came out and said, look, if you're going to consider laying off thousands of school teachers, you ought to consider other things too. For example, a temporary tax on these multi-million-dollar Wall Street bonuses on people who already make more than $500,000 a year. That's something that should be on the table. It should be one of those, some people call it a crazy idea, but you know what, we're in a crazy time, and getting rid of 6,400 teachers is a pretty crazy idea also.
What about what the mayor and people like him would immediately say, oh, but that's just going to lead people to leave Wall Street and take their financial firms elsewhere, because these days it's all computerized, so they could easily work out of London as they work on Wall Street.
People, there is no proof or evidence that large numbers of people would leave the city because of a temporary tax on people who are already making a lot of money, and on bonuses that, if not for the taxpayer bailout last year, would never have happened this year in the first place. But the question isn't even whether these temporary taxes on Wall Street bonuses would drive people to leave. Because the reality is, getting rid of 6,400 teachers will also drive people out of the city. It will deteriorate the quality of our public schools, and people will leave the city. So the question is not which of these choices will keep people in the city. It unfortunately becomes a question of which of these very difficult choices that we have to make to balance the budget will drive the smallest number of people out of the city. That's unfortunately the difficulty that we're faced with.
I think a lot of other people would say that while raising some taxes, or a tax may be part of the solution, that some cuts in the size of the city government, in the workforce of the city government, would also be necessary, that you can't do it, same thing with the state, can't do it without some form of cutbacks of services. In that case, which ones would you cut?
Well, I totally agree. There are a number to bridge a $4 billion deficit. It necessitates cuts as well as increases. That's
So
the way.
you agree to that? You agree that?
Oh yeah,
Yes.
I'm not suggesting that we increase taxes to the level of $4 billion. You know, at the end of the day, it may be something like a 3-to-1 ratio, 3 reductions, 1 or perhaps even less than 1 of increases.
I'm
You
sorry, I
asked
don't
me-
understand that. 3 reductions to 1 of increase. What
well,
do you mean? I'm sorry.
well, what I mean is that you've got a $4 billion gap. That the only way to fill that gap is by reducing expenses or increasing revenues.
Okay.
I don't think it's going to be half and half. I think it's going to be more like, 3 parts reductions, 1 part increase.
I see. Okay, I'm sorry. So continue
Yeah.
with what you were saying.
So there are some reductions that are going to be necessary. The reductions in, reduction in the budget of the EDC, for example, because they're already holding on to so much money. That's one place that you can have a cut where the EDC would not actually have to do less. They would still have the same level of services, but that would go a long way towards bridging the budget deficit.